man, the myth, the legend, the disc golf guy, Terry Miller joins Tour Life for the first time. How's it going?
Good. How you guys doing tonight?
We appreciate your time, man. I know I listened to like all 3 hours of the podcast last night. It helped me on my drive. So I know hopefully you're not all podcast out and you're ready to go for tonight.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you guys need, I think I'm ready to go for it. Sure.
Sweet.
Terry, good to see you, man. How many? Before we go any farther, he's gonna get it. He was gonna go into some costume pictures, but how many times did you get tagged? I know you got to be like one of the more popular costumes as far as disc golfers out there.
I'll say this year I didn't get tagged in any this year. I don't know if they happened or not. I didn't get tagged this year. The last couple of years, I feel like they've been popping up from time to time.
Yeah.
But if somebody was out there and was sporting any this weekend, they did not tag me. And I'll admit, for the first time in a few years, I finally went with somewhat of a costume myself. But I kept it on the down low, and I didn't go too public with it. But I was the disc golf Guy Fieri this weekend when I was out in Vegas.
I love
and plenty of people have already said I kind of look like him. I definitely have his physique. And so I went with the shirt and the earrings and the bracelets and the chain and the sunglasses. And next thing you know, I think I completed the costume and got plenty of remarks about it. So it sounds like it went all right for me.
Awesome.
If someone was trying to be Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, for Halloween, what are like the bullet points that, you being the man himself, what do you think needs to happen for it to pull off the look?
I think you have to start with a button-up shirt of some kind. That's kind of one of my signatures. I know a lot of our fellow broadcasters are in some kind of polo. I'm very particular to a button up. It can be somewhat loud, but only certain patterns and colors are within the realm that are acceptable. But definitely a button up shirt. I feel like, I had to trim down to a goatee to go with the Guy Fieri, but some kind of facial hair goatee / an attempt at a beard. Lately I've been going a little more natural with the hair, but I feel like hair of some kind of doing your hair in some capacity is required. Now I've had a few different styles, but yeah, you have to put effort into the hair in some way. And then if you're sporting a disc golf bag in the front, like I do, and you're carrying a little extra weight around in the front, that's not going to hurt you either. So I feel like those are some of the main components.
Sunglasses or no sunglasses?
Usually sunglasses, depending on what my role is. Sunglasses often tucked into the shirt. These are my clear glasses that I use for when I'm on mopeds in Thailand. But yeah, like tucked into the top of the shirt is a way to go. But sunglasses, you're right. And if you're still out there listening, blenders, I know you're all like on Deion Sanders these days, but I was on blenders before Deion Sanders was. So blenders, I'm ready for a few free pair if you want to send them my way. So good call. Yeah. Sunglasses as well. And then if you take off the sunglasses, you definitely have to have like a red face because you refuse to wear sunscreen.
So maybe a little blush.
Sunburn. Yeah, a little flush
action. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to jump into it because we have some listeners on here that are new to disc golf, and I'm sure they probably have seen you either on coverage or have seen your commentary on YouTube, or maybe they have seen your podcast on Smashbox as well. But can you give a little background to kind of how, where the transition of you as a player to you as a media personality to now as a commentator on the Disc Golf Network, how that kind of all transpired?
And before you get started, one thing I also just saw on the interwebs, somebody post a nice little video of you in like the 2001 United States Disc Golf Champ. Was that the one floating around?
Pro Tour posted that.
Yeah, the Pro Tour threw a flashback. It was an episode that I think had part of the USDGC coverage in it.
Okay.
But the shot was me throwing up at Sandy Point Resort, one of my favorite places in the world. And I was throwing a putt playing in the team tournament up there. And I think that was from 2002, if I recall. But yeah, it was old school, and it was funny to see so many people reacting like, "Oh, I never knew he even played."
Oh my
like,
gosh, that's awesome.
So yeah, so I'll get into that. So I picked up my first disc in the early 90s when I was in like 7th grade, 7th, 8th grade. Played for quite a few years immediately, throughout college. Found that I loved playing, but also that I loved the kind of the behind the scenes stuff. So running tournaments. I think I ran my first tournament when I was like 18 or 19, sanctioned tournament, which kind of at the time was a big deal. Not so much today, but ran tournaments, did the club thing, started doing demos and clinics. And next thing you know, I quit my corporate job in 2003 after graduating. After 2 years of college, I quit my corporate job at Kohl's and just made disc golf a living ever since then. And from 2003 to 2010, it was designing courses, running leagues, running dozens or hundreds of tournaments, clinics, demos, selling discs, all those things. And then in 2010, in January, in the very room I'm sitting in, I recorded my first ever video blog. And I just thought, well, I'll just talk about what's going on in disc golf, and started to record that. And then it was like a year or two later is when I went to the Memorial, and I'm like, hey, like, instead of just me talking about like the newest products that are out, why don't I interview like Avery and Nico and Climo? Like I'm friends with all those people. Yeah, I'll just interview them. That'll give my blog a little bit more cred. And then that's when I found out about things like B-roll and learned how to do a little bit of more editing and things of that nature. And from there, 2013 or 2014, we started Smashbox, which was the live broadcasting.
So it's been 10 years. It's been over 10 years almost.
Yeah, 2010. January of 2010 is when I started my very first blog. Like, coming up on almost 14 years to the day. And Disc Golf Planet was doing live disc golf around 2009, 2008, 2009, somewhere in that time frame, and they were doing live. And myself and Johnny V, my best friend, we were volunteering countlessly. Like, we were on pretty much almost every production they did, and we were just volunteering. Like, I was doing some reporting, I was doing some hosting, whatever they wanted. I was just there to volunteer. And then it was 2014, we said, hey, we think they're being somewhat inefficient with the way they're doing it. It was insanely expensive. And for what they were putting out, it was expensive. And that was when YouTube was switching into a slightly different model about allowing free live broadcasting. And we just thought we could build a better mousetrap. And we then ended up going live like 6 or 8 or 10 times in 2014. And then a couple years later, 2016 rolled around and the Pro Tour started. And Smashbox was the exclusive live provider for all disc golf. We were the only one. There's one or two other outfits that tried and failed pretty quickly, but we were the only one that had any form of traction or consistency. And then, kind of Pro Tour 2.0 came along, and we were even more involved. And now they were up to 10 or 12 or 15 events. And now, we were kind of the back end for the last 3 years, part of the back end of the Pro Tour for the last 3 years. So
Smashbox started as live disc golf, and then you ended up putting a podcast together on the same YouTube channel.
Yeah. So we and meanwhile, I was still dabbling in all of my post-production and learning what that was and going from event to event on my own. But then in 2014, we said, yeah, let's invest. And it was 10 or 15 or 20 grand at the time, which nobody was paying anything for. And so we invested in it. And then when we got to the end of the year, it was November. And we're like, well, USDGC is done. And what are we going to do to remain relevant until the next probably Memorial? Because that used to be kicking off the year in the biggest way. So we said, oh, well, let's just do a podcast during the off season. And then we thought the day like the Memorial started, like our podcast would go away for the entire season, and then we'd just pick it back up. well, so November.
It's a little backwards, but yeah.
Yeah, well, in November of 2014, at that point, we started the podcast, not having any idea really what we were doing there either, because podcasts were not what it is today. And we did the podcast from 2014, and 478 episodes later, we just wrapped up last night's after 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, that's the long journey. That's the abridged but yet long journey.
So the Smashbox going into kind of like the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the Disc Golf Network, you and you just kind of like, were you approached by the Disc Golf Pro Tour as like, hey, we want you being a commentator as well as also with Smashbox coming on board, or was that like your idea of trying to get behind a mic?
No, not at all. I've most people have no idea that live disc golf for the first few iterations by Smashbox were two people, like Johnny V in Milwaukee and me on the ground. I was carrying the unit to transmit the signal. I was filming and I was commentating, all from one camera right next to the players. Like, that was the whole operation. What now is like 29 people, used to be 2. And obviously it's grown and it's a million times better now. But we eventually got to 2 or 3 people, and then we had cameramen, and then we were still commentating from on the ground, and the remote booth was an insane idea and not really plausible even. And so when Steve Dodge started the Pro Tour, and he called me up and said, here's my idea for the Pro Tour, and we were good friends and we talked about it, he said, one thing that's going to set this tour apart from every other tournament is we're going to guarantee live coverage of every event. And we, again, were the only ones doing it. And so that was me and like 2 other people, me, Johnny V, and another buddy of ours. And so it wasn't a matter of like, oh, this is, I'm dying to get on a mic. It was a matter of like, this is all the people we have. I'm going to do this job. Johnny V is going to press the buttons and I'm going to talk. Like,
gotcha.
That was the division of labor, because that's all the labor we had. And
so you guys almost, the Pro Tour almost hired you guys as like a production contractor
100%.
Initially, of like, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
all right. I didn't know that. Gotcha.
Yeah, they basically came along and said, we're going to contract you in 2016 for the 5 live events that we have. And that was the only semblance we had of a contractor schedule, was of guaranteed, because no one else was investing in live. Like it just wasn't a thing yet. And it was really expensive compared to the almost nothing that was otherwise being paid for media. And so only a few tournaments, you were a big deal if you had live disc golf, and it's kind of still true today. But that was one of the major deciding, differentiators from the Pro Tour, from a national tour or any other event in the world, was that he was guaranteeing live would be there, and that was me and Johnny V.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I've got tons of questions, and we've got some listener questions too that decide not to hold back, which I'm sure you'll be excited to hear some of these coming up as well. So okay. I want to jump into these first off. The first thing outside of, like, obviously I knew about your videos and you making, hundreds of these commentary videos, and you called them vlogs basically, and that was a terminology that kind of just died at a certain point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But
hey, I was 41, number 4, video vlog 41. Terry Miller interviewed me at the 2010 World Championships, and I'll never
you were
forget
doing
it.
well in Crown Point. Yeah, we were in a loud,
because I remember being like, "Oh my
room.
gosh, I'm so important. I'm getting interviewed right now. I'm doing good." That was episode 41, or video vlog 41. Anyways,
yeah. So the two things that when I came into disc golf, the 2 things that I was told and like kind of introduced to you was the Disc Golf Guy YouTube channel, and the second one was Putting World Champion.
Okay.
Now, sorry, don't worry about the balloons. This is a thing we have to deal with. I can do all sorts of crazy things over here if we really want to get crazy. So, What is your thoughts now on the PDGA saying no, Terry Miller actually is not a putting world champion?
Well, for
There was
starters,
never a thing. That was never a thing.
No. To be clear, I was not ever the putting world champion. In 2011, what they did is they had the putting qualifiers like they do every Worlds, and that was one of the few places I was like, hey, because I wasn't winning any distance competitions, and so edge and putting were the two places that I had a chance to do well outside of maybe playing. And so they had all the qualifiers, and I think I was in the top, I don't even know, 4 or 5 in terms of all the qualifiers. And I didn't know what that meant at the time because I had already attended like 10 or 12 Worlds, and every Worlds runs their competitions differently. I had attended every World since 96 at that point. So here we are in 2011. And then in 2011, they had us go down to the wharf in Santa Cruz, right?
Oh, nice.
And they set up like 4 or 5 baskets, and they had all these different stations, and they went in reverse order. So if you had 22 points, you went first. If you had 23 points in the qualifier, you went next, so on and so forth. So they go through all these people, and then I'm at the very end because I think the 1 or 2 people that had qualified higher than me didn't show. Like Yeti might have been one of them. He had me by a point or 2. So they go through all these people, and we get to the very end, and then it's me to go, and the score's been set. I don't even know at what number. We'll just say 30. The score had been set, and you have 2 minutes to run around to these 8 different stations and throw all these putts. Do you remember
in the
this? Yuli?
sand?
In the sand. Yeah.
Oh,
so
you're playing sand disc golf.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And the putts range from probably 18 feet to 35 or 40 feet. And you had like 2 minutes to do this loop, and there's like 5 putters at each station. And I remember running through, and I was the last guy to go. The score had been set relatively high, and I'm running, and I'm going through, and I'm doing all right. I finally find a rhythm after getting really nervous. I find a rhythm, and I start nailing a bunch. We get to the very end. I throw up the last putt, and I was like, oh, I'm short. And then everyone starts screaming and says, no, you have another station. So I run over to the next station, not realizing I had 1 more to go, and I hit like 3 out of 5, and I won it. Won the whole thing. And like there was I don't know, a few hundred people down there.
It was awesome.
It was definitely a career highlight
too.
Barefooted.
You had to take his shoes off. I remember that.
Well, you can't have socks in your shoes.
I
That's like a
remember
big
that
no.
specifically to where he like stopped, and we're like, "No, dude, you got another one." He's like, oh, runs over there, makes a couple. That was awesome. Yeah.
So it was, yeah. Anyway, so I considered that the speed putting champion or speed world putt, whatever, but it wasn't like our standard putting that we've kind of standard. I'll even use standard in quotes now. The putting competition for years has been varied at Worlds,
Gotcha.
and Jay Yeti could give you 4 hours probably on that as one of the top contenders year after year. But there's a few times I finished near the top in the putting competition, and that particular year I won the speed putting. There's a vlog on it somewhere out there. Because I think I interviewed Josh Anthon, who I beat, and he was considered arguably one of the best putters on the planet at the time.
Still one of the best putters.
Yeah, and I beat him, and then I rubbed it in. So
nice.
Yeah, but you won. That was I remember. It was the World Championship putting competition.
I guess it just was a
just
it was
because
a weird
it was a different format doesn't mean anything. It was still. We have weird formats all the time. One year we threw downhill for the long drive competition. What was that in Michigan?
Michigan in 08. Yeah, Michigan in 08. Yeah. So
that was my only top 10 in the long drive competition.
Dang, I should have showed up if it was super downhill. I should have showed up with an Ultra Star. Just let that thing glide all the way down, baby.
Yeah.
So don't try to
call it whatever it is. I think I don't know if I'm more proud of that or in 08 I won the only offered pro Glow World Championships over at Colebrook. Or did you do that, Yuli? Probably.
I didn't I was there, but I definitely didn't.
I
know Colebrook destroyed me in the tournament. That ruined my whole tournament, that place.
And that's the only reason I cashed is because I destroyed that course. Yeah. So they had Glow. They had Glow that year on like a Friday night, and I went and did the Glow, and I won. I've won more money at that course than probably any park in the country. It's super tight and technical and short and wooded, and then I played it in Glow, and I destroyed the Glow field as well. So I'm proud of that one as well. Those are two big
Multi-world
moments.
champion.
I mean,
and putting.
I mean, whatever. Or I'm just some guy who doesn't know anything on the microphone.
Okay, so back to Brody's original question though.
Yeah, because technically, no matter what you want to call it, the PDGA does not recognize it as a world champion anymore. They have decided to strip all that, even though it was there. They claim that it never was a thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I side with Climo, who has notoriously said those are nothing but a bunch of reindeer games anyway. Like, I'm good with that. They are extra events at Worlds that are fun. They don't always have the top competitors that could win it, even playing in them. Am I proud of those moments? Of course, but at the same time, I'm not legitimately demanding any sponsors make up a commemorative disc for me to recognize them. If they wanted to, fine, but I'm not. That's not in my demands.
Okay, fair.
So I'm okay with that. It's cool to be a doubles world champ. I filmed a ton of those. Like, those are really cool things to happen, but they are currently still basically side games to the worlds.
Sure.
That's how I feel.
I just didn't like that the PDJ is like trying to act like they never classified them as a world championship, when in fact there is articles written on their website saying world championship. So that's my only take on it. But
sure,
we can move on. We can move on. All right, talk to me about this disc golf storage business. What is this? You have boxes or something? What's going on here?
I've got all of your shipping and disc golf needs. No, a number of years ago, again, backing way up, I used to sell on eBay way back in the day, way back when eBay was in its heyday, and eventually, when I got back into selling even more discs online through Facebook and such, there was one option. Shipping in boxes became a new standard at some point, right? And, people were doing bubble envelopes with a piece of cardboard, and then like the next graduation was to cardboard boxes. And there was one gentleman in the Midwest that made them, and I didn't care for his business practices, and so I thought, well, I'm going to ship my own discs in my own boxes. And did a lot of research and went out and had a die made up and had these produced to make these shipping boxes. And then after a year or two of just sitting on that, I was like, oh, maybe I should like really offer these up and sell them to people. And so I took a play off of the Saturday Night Live skit and offer up my disc in a box, which are made for shipping discs to people. And now, I don't want to say 9 out of 10, but I bet you quite a few discs that either of you receive or pass through you at some point or around you are likely in a box that I had made up at some point. And they're great because people recycle them and everything else. And they protect your disc better. So I created it again, like an entrepreneur. I feel like just like the live, like I felt I could build a better mousetrap, so to speak, or improve on a product. I didn't invent cardboard or boxes or mailing, but I feel like my boxes are better than what we're currently out there. And if people want to use them, I'll ship them to them.
Disc in a box. I don't know if we should be having YouTube saying those types of phrases.
I'm not saying, as you see, I'm not trying to say it at all. I'll let you promote it as much as you want.
Yeah.
I already know what happens when I get close to saying stuff like that. So, all right, next topic. Something that I think you have, seen over the years is and we'll kind of get, I do want to get a little bit kind of into the hater talk a little bit, because I like how you go after people. I respect that a lot. But before we go there, so a topic that is brought up a whole lot is commentary, and you and Yuli both are in post and live commentary. What kind of training, like professional training, if any, is being done right now for the Disc Golf Network?
Short answer is not enough, in my opinion, and I think they recognize and know that. My background is in live disc golf commentary, has been nothing but my own experience, and I think that's the same for most of our commentators, whether they're color analysts or whether they're play-by-play or host / play-by-play. And I would go as far as saying I don't think there has been enough training in a formal or professional capacity, and I know that is a piece of feedback that the tour has accepted and hopefully is striving to address. Because we want it. I know I want it. I know Nate Doss wants it, and Val, all of us, any one of us that sits there, as far as I know, any one of us, if we were, given a training or a lesson, whether it's a multi-day or a 10-hour seminar or a half-hour feedback session or anything in between, we would take constructive criticism and professional training and feedback. But that currently isn't happening.
You guys started something which I thought was something that was very needed on the live coverage, and that was you started like the pre-show, or what is it called now?
Tournament Central.
And that was something that I thought was a huge thing, because you tune in to disc golf at 3:00 and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're on hole 1, and there's just like no build up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no build up, there's nothing. Whatever happened to those 2 people? There was like 2 people that were there for like a week that were doing Tournament Central, and then like they just disappeared. What went down there?
I don't know all the details let me before I even go any further with that. I think it's of note. I am not an employee of the Disc Golf Pro Tour or the Disc Golf Network. I'm a independent contractor. Well, Smashbox was contracted, both the services of me and Johnny V. For the last 3 years, we've had a contract. But I'm an independent contractor essentially versus some of the paid employees. Now, is
that all the commentary people?
I was just going to say most of the commentary people are. The exception now being Brian Earhart. I want to say he's the from a talking head perspective, he's the only full-time employee of the network versus myself, Philo, Ian, Sexton, Doss, Jenkins, Zoe, Charlie, Juliana. So everyone at Perkins, every one of those people are contracted in some capacity. So I feel like that's worth making that distinction right off the top. And your question was what again?
So you guys started the Tournament Central thing.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And you started with 2 people that no one had any idea who these people were, and then they just like vanished.
Yeah,
like a week later or something.
Yeah,
were they just terrible?
I think the initiative was to have the show, this Tournament Central, which is trying to do what you were asking for in terms of a lead up and then a post game as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges there is that it was largely remote, and they were remote from each other, and they hadn't worked together. And they both, Liz knows disc golf considerably, and the other gentleman, I think Andre, didn't know disc golf quite as well. And then you put them with a little bit of a time delay, and that they're remote also then from a producer, and I think it exaggerated any challenges that they might have had in getting comfortable. And so ultimately, they both, I don't know if they both got frustrated, or I can't really speak to exactly how it all went down, but I know that, then there was a different combo that was kind of tried out. And then eventually I think Brian more or less, stepped in and said, hey, I'm more than happy to help be part of this as well. I have some ideas. And then it was Music City. I was the first host of the reboot of that. And I did it from this very room, and Perkins and Earhart were on the ground, and that went really well. But you had 3 very seasoned, talkers, so to speak. And then it continued to still evolve, where we got Dustin involved and Grant Zellner and a number of other people. But we were pulling from a pool now of a lot more of our established and regular, talking heads. Mm-hmm. And I think those few people were really up against a tall task, and I don't think the technology the smoothness of the overall show was quite there yet. So I don't want to say it was set up to fail, because that's clearly not it, but there was just I think the challenges were greater than I think we even realized, especially with a couple of new faces. So if that kind of answers your question,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, how the relationships went or who did what or how that all unfolded, but right now it looks like we're leaning more into, established commentators.
Makes sense. What are your thoughts? Was there any discussion with Smashbox getting snubbed this year at the Grippies for the longest podcast award?
I didn't know of said categories. Do
you know who you guys lost to?
No idea.
You're on the show, brother.
Oh, okay.
You're on the show.
What, that you guys are longer than we are?
First time Grippies winner. Let's go, you.
It's huge.
How does that make any?
It was huge. It was huge.
What is this category?
I don't know,
what
man.
Is this category?
We didn't give the award away.
I don't know. The Grippies is not us, brother. We just won the award. We just accepted it. I don't know what you want.
I don't.
Tell me, what's the premise to the award?
Ooh, good question.
The award is literally called longest podcast. Other than that, I don't know. That's just what the award's called.
Number one criticism, besides being on me, that of our podcast is that we're too effing long, and somehow you jokes come along.
Tough. It's tough. It's tough.
I don't know, man.
I know.
Maybe next year.
I think this.
Maybe next
this
year.
Is what I think.
Maybe next year.
Listen, I think it's because we're so hard to listen to that it feels like it's like 6 hours. So maybe that's a compliment we can throw your guys' way.
The time flies when listening to Smashbox.
Exactly.
I mean, who's working the stopwatch over there? Nico? I mean, not realizing how long we're going. I mean, give me a break. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Something that you guys can work on in the off season. Maybe come out next year and just give it your all. Who knows? Maybe you can pull it off.
Almost 4 freaking hours last night.
But it was like this. How fast did you get home, Brody, listening to it?
Oh, no problem. I was flying through Memphis, flying through Knoxville, Little Rock. See you later. I was good.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, I mean, if there's not any inside collusion by whatever the foundation,
I actually don't
even know.
Yeah, I don't even know who really puts on the awards. We just get an email that says you've won a Grippy. So as far as I'm concerned, it might be an anonymous award. I don't know really who's
for what it's worth. I didn't know we were even in the running or there was a nomination or that happened.
That's awesome
so
that you guys
tells you how much I'm concerned.
That's awesome that you guys were in there too, though.
Yeah, you were close. It was close apparently. All right. So next year, there's been I almost said scuttlebutt, and now I did say it, which I don't know if that's a word that either one of you guys ever use in your vocabulary, but there has been some scuttlebutt about wanting to see Terry Miller back on the disc golf course. And you got two people right here that do practice round videos. You got me and Ezra, and then you got Yuli on the Jomez side. What are the chances of seeing the disc golf guy on a practice round video next year?
As our producer would say, the chance is greater than 0, but that's about all that I can say. I don't.
What if we find a sandy beach where you can run around?
I mean, if every hole is like sub 300 feet and they're technical, then maybe then I have a chance to not embarrass myself.
Portland Open.
What? Portland Open? Those are wide open 700 footers. I'm not an idiot.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Show that roller game off.
I was thinking,
like a Waco. A Waco could be nice.
A Waco or maybe an Idlewild. Those would be. Or let's just go to Colebrook. Like, let's make a special trip over to Colebrook. And there's my best chance to look all right. I didn't fully embarrass myself during this year's Celebrity Pro-Am, or last year's, I guess, and that might be the highest note I can go out on. I don't know. Putting myself on camera, as funny as it sounds, I get nervous too, because clearly I haven't been filmed like everybody else. So I don't know if I want to set myself up for that kind of scrutiny.
You might have been in front of the camera more than anybody ever in disc golf history.
But not golfing. Golfing in front of the camera. And Yeah, my skills aren't
different
what
animal.
they were. Yeah, my skills weren't what they were in 2007.
Didn't you shoot a 18 under par once on your home course?
Yeah, on a pitch and putt local league
I
course.
remember,
but
dude. I remember the stories flying back in the day.
Short and technical is my bread and butter. That's for sure.
Well, next time you come down to Dallas, I'll have to take you out the Dashes. It'll be your favorite course.
Okay.
It's I played 2 rounds out there today. It's phenomenal. Absolutely loved it.
Okay.
Okay, speaking of tournaments and courses, what is your all-time favorite tournament? Do you have one that sticks out to you?
Colebrook's off the table. Enough about Colebrook.
This is more on the commentary side, not so much maybe you playing, because people want to. Yeah, people, newer disc golfers want to maybe have something of being like, hey, I've never heard of this tournament. I've never seen coverage. This is a good one to go back and watch. What's something that you can give someone, one of these 2020 disc golfers, something to watch that you thought was a great tournament?
I mean, one of my favorite ones to always call, and it's the number one course in the country, in the world, is Maple Hill. And I largely say that too because I've spent more time at Maple Hill than any other course on tour, right? So I'm more intimately familiar with that course than OTB, right? So that, to me, that's when I think back to some of my favorite memories and some of the courses and the shots and the difficulty. And people, unless you've been to Maple Hill, I don't think you can appreciate how difficult a tee shot like hole 6 or hole 7 really is. You think of the fun stuff on 14 or the fun stuff on 8, but 6 and 7 are just so challenging. So, and then even the difficulty on 18. I mean, our top level pros make 18 look so manageable, and that's why Steve Dodge has effed with it every year for the last 20 years because people keep playing it better. And so when I think about top level golf, I think about anything that's been at Maple Hill throughout the years. And I don't know if it fully comes through on camera, but I hope it comes through in the commentary and the excitement that it's a special place.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that. And I've always told people, I think the number one destination place, like if you were going to do a guy's trip to play some disc golf, you do a week or half a week at Maple Hill, and then you do the other half up at Smugs. It's super drivable between those two, and they're close enough to where you can knock them both out back to back, and you'll get 3 awesome courses and have a really good time. So I think it works for the pros, and I also think it works for the AMs, because especially Maple Hill, there's so many different layouts that you can play to where it's just different every time.
And it's exciting for you guys to call it because the holes are so hard down the stretch that you just never know what's going to happen. And it's usually tight, like this year with Matty O winning from the second card, like it wasn't even close. And that's so bizarre that, the lead, just so you know, the lead card also won the Grippy, I think, this year for biggest choke job of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
it's pretty hilarious, but
that's a whole nother story. Like, when's the last time we saw somebody ice out, so to speak, the entire card by just taking it away from them off the chase? Like, that's a whole nother, insane story of the year.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, and I agree with you that Smuggler's Notch, has a little bit for everybody. Again, of those two courses, I would play 10 rounds at Brewster before I'd play a second round at Fox Run Meadows, just because of my preference of golf. But both the fact that you have those options on the same property in this beautiful place and this great time of year in fall, I totally agree. Yeah, make those trips for sure.
All right, let's get this in the books here. What is the proper way to pronounce the number 1 FPO player in the world? What are we going with?
Kristin Tattar.
That's what you're going with in 2024. You're doing that every
I'm not
time?
saying that's what I'm going with, but
That is the proper way.
I feel like if you're going all in, you have to go all in on her first name as well, or you can. Kristin Tattar is, in my opinion, again, I'm deaf in one ear, which is a whole nother story as a commentator. But when I hear her say her name, that's what I hear. And for anyone that's mishearing me, I am not adding an extra R in there. I am not saying T-A-R. I'm saying Tattar. Okay? But what I can tell you...
Why does your face look like a ventriloquist person when you're saying it? He's like, you don't...
I'm
like
really
nothing
concentrating.
moves. Yeah, nothing moves except for your mouth. You're just like,
Tattar. Tattar. So what I am convinced of, and what I will say is, even if I am not 100% correct on that and do not have it 100% nailed, it is much closer than the previous version of Tattar.
Okay.
I know
fair.
that much. I've had enough Estonians and other Europeans confirm with me. Some have said I'm dead on. Some have said I'm really close. But all have said I'm much closer than Tattar.
Am I a terrible person when I play with someone that is from a different country that doesn't, English is not their language, and, I ask them what their name is and they say something to me and I say, what was that? And then they say it again and I'm like, okay, I can't say that. Am I a terrible person for like calling them Peter when maybe their name is like
Pita?
something like something different? Something like I can't like roll my.
That's his name. Dang it!
This is an interesting question because I've never been really. I mean, my name's not. I guess you can't really mispronounce my name.
What if you showed up and every announcer in Europe called you Brody Smith?
Because they couldn't say Brody. I mean, I couldn't pronounce my L's when I was a kid. I actually also was, I don't know if you were born with deaf in one ear, but I actually was born deaf in both ears. So I had like a really bad speech problem growing up. So like I would say yellow, like I couldn't say the L's. And I don't know what tangent I'm going on, but if I was in a different country and they were having a hard time pronouncing my name for whatever reason, I wouldn't, but I'm also like, I'm not probably the best person to ask that question because I don't really get offended by anything.
People in other countries like pronounce my name like spot on.
Oh, they're better.
Oh yeah, they're way better. They roll their R's, they get after it. Here in America, it's just like goes all over the place.
Yeah, I've always I don't want to be rude, but at the same time, like there's certain words that I struggle that are American words that I struggle. I mean, you hear it right here. Yeah, you listen enough to this podcast, people are telling me like it's not.
I struggle with it too.
It's not exception. It's especially, or I don't even know what the word is.
Yeah,
like,
especially, which is again that's part of us learning in that I used to say. Especially like EX, especially like especially, and Nate Doss used to say it all the time as well. And once somebody corrected me, I think on our podcast, and said it's not especially, it's especially. I then tried to take note of that, and of course I want to improve. And then when I noticed Nate was saying it while we were doing a show one time, I said, "Hey, just so you know, it's easy to do. This is a word I screw up or have screwed up for the last 30 years." Just so you know, and he works really hard to fix that mistake. And that's maybe, as a side note, that's maybe something that I hate is people, like there's words that people didn't realize that they're saying wrong. So there's one problem there. And then there's another problem when like you don't have to be an absolute, jerk about it. And somebody's probably, if they know it, and if you give constructive feedback and criticism, then somebody can improve on it. And that's why I've said for decades, when someone's like, "Hey man, hey fat ass, you suck." Okay, cool. or you could say, "Hey, just so you know, you're saying especially wrong." And it's not like one of those is useful. The other one is not. Right. And so, I mean, I know that's the whole definition of constructive criticism, but some people just don't get that. And they just think it's easier just to be a jerk and not really do anything that's going to help you improve.
So is it?
The one that got me was
especially.
No,
especially.
It's especially, and what most people do, I
especially.
think,
Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's
especially. That's the word that people hate me saying it. So I'm trying to get better at it. Especially.
Yep.
I think I say X. I definitely think I say especially.
You put an X in there just like I did for decades. Yeah. Because I never knew otherwise. Like I just flat out started pronouncing the word wrong.
Why is further wrong?
Well, it's farther. Because it's no. It depends. If you're talking about
disc golf.
No, it depends. It like if you want to say, hey, let's go further into this. That is correct. Right. But if I want to say, hey, I throw farther than you, you would say when you're talking about actual distance, like literal distance, it's farther. Just think of your boy Crush's shirt who says I throw farther than you, because it's like he used to have on the back of the Crush shirt, Robbie Bratton, right? Mm-hmm. You used to wear that shirt. So I use this as my thing to remember it by. When it's actual distance, it's farther, and when it's figuratively, it's further.
See, that helps me.
I also didn't know that. Until 5 years ago.
But here's the thing, guys. We're talking about the English language, and I put syrup on my waffles, but I put syrup on my pancakes.
Syrup?
So
syrup?
This is tough. It's tough to figure it out. But,
syrup? What is syrup? I've never heard of syrup before.
It's delicious. You should try it out. It's very good. All right, let's keep going. We got a couple more questions.
I don't want to go down that route or that route.
Yeah.
Right?
A couple more questions before we get you out of here.
Fatty, Brody, shut up, Fatty. You should know how to say that, Brody. What is your deal?
All right, so let's talk about a little bit of the negative feedback, because have you seen, like, when you first were putting out YouTube videos, was there negative feedback on those, or have you seen, as the sport gets bigger and bigger, as you have gotten more and more popular, more of that negative feedback?
It definitely has grown. One, because I was one of the only people putting out content. And so, not to say that, well, you have to be happy with because it's the only thing. I mean, there was clearly even negativity there. Some people just flat out don't like me, don't like the way I pronounce things, because I have a Midwestern accent. And so some people just get really hung up if I say bag or bag wrong, or however they want to, say that it's said. Some people think I have some kind of, attitude about a player, or just because, or I make a joke that doesn't land, or I make a joke that does land, but you just don't like it. Like, great example is the Gannon Burr situation not too long ago, where I said something about his putting and me, seeing a beard being grown. Like, most people knew that was funny and or true. But if you're a huge, like, hardcore Gannon fan and you're on the fence of not liking me, well, like, that's going to just send you over the edge. You definitely hate me for that. Like, and that's, I mean, those are just the numbers I have to play with, right? If I'm going to take any kind of risk whatsoever. So yeah, it is definitely grown. And then it's also grown because I'm sure other commentators and other figureheads have come into the sport and they just prefer somebody else. So again, because our society is all jacked up, it's not good enough that you just may prefer Yuli over me. You have to then tell me that you prefer Yuli over me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, thanks, I guess. So yeah, it definitely, and then of course, just the sport, the numbers, right? The numbers have grown. Here, one of my greatest semi-analogies is there's like literally Facebook groups of I hate Joe Buck, or I hate Troy Aikman, or I hate whomever, right? There's Facebook groups, there's probably Twitter or Reddit threads and subthreads about all these hate around all these multi-million-dollar professional broadcasters for a billion different reasons. And you have to think, how much can they possibly care? If they're doing their job that the network likes, and they are by and large on the right path, you just can't win over everybody. And I cannot stress that enough, that as much as I'd love for people to like what I'm doing and hopefully enjoy it, some people are never going to like my dad jokes. Some people are never going to like a little bit of sarcasm or a throwback to something that happened in 1999. Okay, like, as long as that's just a smaller portion, and it's not the majority. The problem is that smaller portion is so loud about it that they feel like they're so much more, right? So I don't know. Is Joe Buck like staying up at night worried about what some ass clown somewhere said on Twitter about him? I mean,
I think certain people do, because certain people have like that ego and they want to either be always right or they want everyone to like them. But then there's, I think, other people that they see it as a 9-to-5 job. They go in, they check in, they check out, and then they're done. So I think that's how you kind of can see some people that stay in it for a long time and some people that can't stay in it for a long time, because like if you cannot check out, it will wear at you and it will eat at you. And I've seen it in social media from the YouTuber side, from Vine, from TikTok. I've seen it all over, of where people come in and they can't handle the negative comments. It's like you're getting 150 positive comments and 3 negative ones, but it's that one negative comment that says like, hey, you have a pimple on your cheek, you look ugly. Like that comment just breaks them and they can't do it. So I think it depends. But one thing I like that you do is like, you're not afraid to call people out that call you out. And we don't really ever see that from other people in the disc golf media world. Is that because you're an independent contractor that you don't feel like you are kind of like, I have to be PC about everything? Like what makes you feel like you can kind of just go off after people?
Well, a couple of things. That first of all, if you don't like my hair or the way I say bag, okay, that's fine. If you want to challenge me on something that's like, I'm going to say factual, and it's not just an opinion, but it's truly factual about something I said or a reference that I made, and then you want to back that up with, oh, this fat ass doesn't even know anything about disc golf. He's rated 950. What does he know? Again, sorry, that's my internet voice when I want to get cocky with people. I just think like you don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know everything. Just because I've been around since '93 and I happen to be 45, I'm not saying I know everything. I take plenty of L's, or I admit my mistakes all the time. But just to like blindly attack me because they heard something Brody said and it conflicts with something I said, and then I'm just automatically the wrong idiot here. Like it's just,
I love hearing that. I love hearing that.
I like, that's so silly that that's this knee jerk reaction. And anyway, there is, I still hold myself back. Let me put it that way. Trust me, I don't go off on everyone. I don't have the time for it, and I don't have the mental capacity to go off on everyone. But I bite back occasionally when I find it truly really outlandish. Like it's just so far off and just so like distantly removed from any ounce of reality. And if it happens to cross me, sometimes I'll bite back. Now, sometimes I'll bite back with a little extra humor. Sometimes it'll be sarcasm. Rarely do I like try to get into the nuts and bolts and the hardcore facts of like, here's where you're wrong and here's the 19 reasons why. I just like to give a little light jab back, and if they can't take it, then that's on them. It's funny because a lot of times people feel like, well, we could just say whatever we want. They do this, they do that, and we could just say whatever we want. They shouldn't be able to clap back. And it's like, why? Why do you have that immunity? As some rando, why do you feel like you should get that immunity or have that protection? So once in a while, I'll feel like I do it. Now, would I do it differently if I were employed by the network? The short answer is yes, but by how much is the question, right? Like, okay. I would still want to have some, but yeah, I do worry that, and the network could still call me up tomorrow and be like, hey, we saw what you posted to some guy on Twitter yesterday. It was hilarious that you obliterated him, but we still can't have you commentating next year, because for whatever reason, like that could still happen, right? I mean, just because I'm not within the payroll of the network directly doesn't mean that they couldn't still distance themselves from me. So I have to be cognizant of that as well. And I do kind of mind my P's and Q's to some degree when it comes to disparaging remarks or how hard I guess I quote unquote clap back at someone.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Yeah, I respect that a lot, and coming from someone that isn't afraid to say what I think and not really hold back. I've had people come to Discraft to tell them that they should stop sponsoring me. I have
Sure.
people send us stuff at Foundation to say like, I'm never shopping with you guys again. And for me, like, the one thing I never want to lose is like my voice and my opinion. I want to be able to always share that. And so I love the relationship I have with Discraft because they have never once told me, hey, you can't say this. Hey, like, you're saying bad stuff about our players. You can't do that on your podcast. I say whatever I want to say. And at the end of the day, if Discraft decides like, hey, we have to let you go, Brody, because of what you said, I'm going to keep doing my own thing. Like, that's going to be unfortunate, but I don't ever want to feel like I can't say what I want. I feel like right now, a lot of the media that's in disc golf is owned by the Disc Golf Network. And so you have, it seems at times where you have people that are watching what they say because of maybe some of the ramifications or whatnot. And so I think the more media that comes out of where people are just able to say what they want, I think that's a good thing for disc golf. And that's one thing I do appreciate with you when you like do come after people like that is like, and obviously we all have our biases, right? I mean, you work with them, so you're probably gonna have a little bit more than someone like me that doesn't have a job with the Disc Golf Network. So I understand that.
Brody, part of that also with Terry and even myself is we've been around for so long that we have like a kind of a deep ingrown into the sport reputation as well. And so like that we've had for a very long time, not saying that you haven't been in, but you haven't been in since 1993. And so I feel like Terry is known as this guy for a very long time. And I've known Terry more than half my life, and he's never changed one time ever. So he is what you get, you know what I mean? But at the same time, of course, if you got to know Terry personally or myself personally or Brody personally, all of us have to hold back a little bit, from the things that are said to us, of course. But also we're protecting something that's been around very long term for me. I can say that about myself.
No, it makes sense.
I don't want to say these things, whatever comes to mind, because I have a long history with a lot of people that I don't want to push buttons with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I agree with you very much there, Yuli. And I guess it's somewhat synonymous with the concept, in my opinion, of yes, there's free speech, but just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. And that's kind of the code I live by, and that is very generically applied to all of life and government and politics. Like, just because you can say it, I mean, you can tell a police officer to F off the second you interact with them. You're protected under free speech. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. Yeah. Right. And just because you can say certain things on certain platforms, I just feel like doesn't mean you should. And then that's a whole nother, again, conversation. But I have a hard time with people that want to go to any platform, want to spew the most hateful, vitriol, kind of conversations and words, and then want to, come under free speech. And it's like, yes, we have free speech, but every platform doesn't have free speech. And even if there is free speech, that doesn't mean you should use it, right? Yeah. You can say, hey, I love guns and I love to carry guns around, but try saying that while you're boarding a plane, right? Like, just not your smartest move. Yeah. And so there's times where I hold back as well, because I could say something about it, but I'm like, is it worth it to make that mention? I may agree with somebody on something, but that doesn't mean I have to go out and necessarily say it as well. And fair or not, it's funny because I've also been challenged throughout the years when a player came to me one year and said, hey, you said this on coverage while you filmed me, and something happened and you said something. I'm like, why do you care what I think? He's like, well, you have this obligation because you're in the media. And it started just kind of asking a lot of questions, like, who is my obligation to? Is it to him? Is it Is it to the sponsor? Is it to the course or the TD? Is it to the organization? Is it to the people that wrote the check for me to be there? What if I'm there on my own dime? Like, there's a lot of, we're kind of sifting and wading our way through this entire media landscape still, which, to be fair, I kind of was there in the early days. So it's sometimes difficult to hear some rules or regulations or things that get said when it's like, hey, I was here from the get-go. And that doesn't mean I'm entitled to anything, but I've also watched this landscape shift and move from me going to dozens of tournaments, losing money on them, to then eventually turning into a business where TDs are like, oh, we'd like to pay you to come film tournaments. And, and now we're in totally different world.
Helped shift it. Honestly, Terry, you helped pave the way for the things that we have. Obviously, yep. I mean, I know I even. Oh, here we go! Breaking news.
Oh, geez.
Breaking news! Breaking news! It has been confirmed that not only has Alden joined the Discmania Collectors Group on Facebook, but also Gannon Buhr.
Oh, what? Just now.
Both confirmed in the Discmania Collector Group.
Unbelievable.
Take that for what you want.
Maybe they picked up some sweet dis in Spain from Seppo or something. And
Seppo's leaving Prodigy?
Yes, Seppo's going to Discmania, Terry?
I'm just
Breaking
saying.
news from Terry? Oh, wow. This show's getting better.
They did a vlog together in Spain or something. I don't know. Anyway, so well, thank you, Yuli. I do feel like it's been interviewing our players, having these conversations. And so that kind of answers your question earlier, Brody, when you're talking about like, did I demand to or request that I was on a mic? No, I think it was just a product of being in the right place at the right time. And I was the guy that was largely doing that. There's a lot of tournaments where there was no other media crews because they didn't exist. And I'm there and I decide to interview the champion. And that just became a thing that I did. And now it's obviously part of the, the given protocol every weekend. But that was just me doing it for my own sake for 5 or 8 years. So that just kind of evolved into those things.
And where we are right now too is like as disc golf media continues to grow, and I mean when you first started, I can be pretty 100%. I feel in saying like you weren't making a lot of money, probably making disc golf videos when you first started. So as people are starting to see companies come in and make money in disc golf media, that means more people are going to be like, hey, that's something that maybe I can do. And all that's going to do is create competition. And all that's going to do is make it to where people are like, I hate this podcast, but there's this one over here and I like this one a lot. Or 100%. I hate this YouTube channel, but I like this one. The more options, the better, versus like at a certain point in time, you were like the option, right? Like if you wanted to hear anything, I remember Ultimate Frisbee, there was a guy called Match Diesel who was just an Ultimate Frisbee player as well. And he had a blog, and it was really the only person that was ever doing tournament recaps. And so everyone was reading his blog to see what he had to say about players and stuff. And it was like, if you got your name in there, it was awesome. Or if they said something bad about you, you got pissed off. And it's like, that was the only thing Ultimate Frisbee had. College Ultimate Frisbee especially had. And so, I mean, it's just going to be one of those things of where it's just going to keep evolving. But all right, we have a few more questions before we let you go. These are from some of the listeners. These are from pulled from Discord, pulled from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also from Reddit as well. So we'll try to fly.
Oh boy.
We'll try to fly through some of these real quick and see what your thoughts are. So the first one's from Jayhawk. He says, I know he has to have an extensive collection of discs. Where/when can we see it? Do you have any plans on filming a video of your disc collection?
I think what would be an incredible series, would be grabbing a bin of discs, setting them in front of me, and then just going through those 30 discs, 30 to 37 discs, whatever it is, going through them. If there's a story or how it's relative or significant, going through that and then going through another bin, and that's episode 1. And I could do that for a few years. Like it would be and again, some bins are going to be cooler than others. You know, if I have a bin of 40 or I'm sorry of 30 Captain Raptors, like it'll be like, oh hey, these came out, these are for Yulee, first year was blah blah blah, and here's 32 of them. And so that bin's pretty quick and easy. But the next bin might span an entire year with 2 or 3 different companies, and then I could say, hey, I got this one at the Worlds. Oh, this one was signed by Yulee when he was leading Worlds. Well, then here's the one when
Eric McCabe won Worlds.
McCabe went on to win Worlds. Here's that saying, like, here's the player pack disc I got for winning or for being in that Worlds. So anyway, I could do that. That's kind of the plan. I think that could be a pretty fun series, honestly, because
at least one bin, the Captain Raptor bin episode. I'll watch that.
Well, that's going to be the fire sale. So,
all right, this one's in from Session. He says, I do not know much about Terry besides his reporting, but did he play disc golf competitively? And what was your highest reported rating?
Reported. I started playing in 92, 93. I attended my first Worlds. I got my number when I was in high school. I'm PDJ number 10738. So
no one cares.
That's a significant timestamp.
Sorry, I always like saying that with the PDJ number because everyone loves saying it.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to say that.
No,
Sorry.
I remember your take.
I could get away. I knew I could get away with you.
I remember I think it was your take and a lot of others that are like, no one cares. And it's like, then you're just not smart because
no one cares when you use that. Sorry, the way you're using it is fine. No one cares when you use your PDJ number as like more than someone else.
Correct.
And you use it as like a ooh, look at me. Like no one cares what your PDJ number is when it comes to like a debate or something.
Correct. But it's largely a timestamp. It's largely a timestamp for me, and that should tell you.
Thank you for letting me finally say that because I know you're the only one I probably can get away with saying it and not taking offense to it. But
I mean, that was also at a time when to go from 10,000 to 20,000 took years. We're doing that in a few months or a few weeks, right? We're getting 10,000 people in a few weeks. That used to take a year to do. And so
babies out there.
It was very different. It was a very different time frame.
What year did you get your PDJ number?
Like 95, I want to say, because I played in the 96 AM Worlds in Augusta, Georgia in 96. So I had to have
10,
a member.
000?
10,738. Yeah.
So mine's 27171, and I got mine in 2005.
Yeah, that's cute. 2005.
Nobody cares.
Anyway, so I eventually
a timestamp. Never mind. With a bunch of trolls out here, man.
Eventually I worked up in the 980s and 990s. I hung out in the 990s for a rating for quite some time.
That's cute.
I was in the 980 to 990-ish frame for I don't know if it was 10 years. I'd have to look it up. It was for a long time. And I'll hang my hat on this. Eric McCabe said in a podcast a few years ago, he goes, he called it, with ratings inflation, he thinks by 995 in 2007 would probably be closer to like a 1015 in today's world. I don't know if there's any truth to that. He's a world champ with one opinion. But yes, my peak rating was 995 in 2007, which is the same year I ran Am Worlds, and then the next day went to Pro Worlds and finished in the cash at Pro Worlds. So I was doing more than just playing disc golf.
Nice. All right, Adam Wright, I've heard that all tour stops currently on tour will be gone within 3 to 5 years, and that all tour stops will be at properties dedicated to disc golf, mostly private properties or disc golf specific properties. Is this actually something that is a reality within 5 years? I have no idea what Adam.
He said he's heard it. Yeah, he said he's heard that. I'm glad Adam knows more than all of us. Is it a plausible idea that we're all on private property? 100%. I mean, we've all seen this. That's why we're not at the Memorial and we're not at a number of other properties, because we don't have the exclusive access and use of that land. And so that's why Maple Hill and Smuggler's Notch and so on and so forth, and these properties or properties that treat us like we have exclusive use. Jonesboro is a great example, right? That's technically public land, but we really take it over for the week. Is that a goal? Yeah, I would say that's a goal. Is it going to happen in 3 to 5 years? I mean, anything could happen. I don't. If that's in the business plan or the business model, then I haven't heard it explicitly said. But it's also not crazy. It could happen.
L'Enfant Suave. Does Terry think it's possible for disc golf media to maintain its sense of community as it grows, or will we see it devolve into an endless stream of hot takes and clickbait, just like every other popular sport, in order to meet the demand of the 24/7 news cycle? This is a good question.
It is, and I hope there's people that will back me up. Like I am so not clickbait. Like if I hate it.
That's such a good quote. I am so not clickbait.
Like I hate it. I do. And sometimes, and this creates certainly a bias and a little frustration to sometimes hear talking heads and people spew on about shit they don't know what they're talking about because they watch something on the Disc Golf Network for a few hours, but now they know everything there is about disc golf. And I was like there 9 feet from what transpired, but they know the take. Like it just kind of frustrates me. And maybe that's a little ego driven, but so do I think it's going to evolve into just a cesspool of clickbait and stupidity? Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think we're headed there. There's no way of getting away from that, right? That stuff will always exist. I think the only thing is the people that do know what they're talking about, those are the people that have to continue to make content and do it in a professional way, or do it in a way to where people can consume it. Because, I don't know that much about the NFL, but I certainly know that I'm not going to Skip Bayless to get my information about the NFL on who's good and who's not, right? I think we that's what I'll say is there's all that niche, that kind of area of content. There will always be people that go towards that stuff, but I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing, because there will always be good content out there of people like yourself or Brian Earhart or Andrew Fish has a podcast that are saying stuff that people can go and listen to and be like, all right, I agree with what this person is saying, or I don't agree with what they're saying. But I don't see it happening that much in disc golf, just because there isn't that much to gain from it. So I think the clickbaiters are probably going to try to go somewhere else, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. Again, for me, it's always been frustrating because I continue to go to more events than almost anyone else that's not throwing a frisbee, and so when I hear and see reports or takes that I just know are dead wrong, and then I see them perpetuated, and then of course you see, like everything else, how it catches fire on social media, and it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm old school, maybe I'm just becoming an old curmudgeon, I don't know, but it's easy to roll your eyes and just be like, really? So yeah, unfortunately I think it's going to continue though, because there's access to content, and then everyone's going to have their take. And I'm not saying you can't have an opinion, and I'm not saying your opinion, you can't necessarily share it, but there's some people that I feel like are emphatically spewing their angle and hot take and their opinion, and they're just dead wrong. And it's like, cool. You keep doing you.
Yeah, that's why
I need to worry about.
That's why you got to come on debate night next year. Okay. All right. The last question is from Isaac. However, Isaac, unfortunate, Terry will not be able to answer this, because this will be answered on either a practice round with me and Ezra or on Joe Mez's practice round. The question is, what's in your bag right now? So if you want to know what Terry's throwing, you're going to have to wait until next year's practice rounds. Sorry about that. All right. Before we let you go, though,
let me give you the hint, though. The hint is lots of old school plastic, because I don't have the time or the care to learn much new stuff unless it's like literally just handed to me while I'm out on a course.
Unless it's a brand new like Gannon Burr Discmania disc,
Yeah, sure. But I have some plastic that's older than a bunch of your viewers, probably. So I'll say
fired.
that. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Are you trying to say we have young viewers? Come on, man. Yeah,
I'm not saying you guys are into young men. I'm just saying that I've got a lot of old school plastic because I quite frankly just to go out and get the latest and greatest and to change something up for the 10 rounds a year I play now, it's just not really worth it for me to keep on top of it. That's my hint.
All right, so this is something that we normally ask all of our guests, and majority of the time our guests are professional disc golfers, so it's always cool when we have someone that might have a little bit of a different angle than them. So
I'm
Terry,
a professional disc golfer, but go on.
Correct. Maybe you should throw "were" in front of that, but
I've cashed this year in professional divisions.
I don't count that. I don't count that. I'm sorry. We can debate this next year on debate night. I do not count that.
I know. I'm kidding. Go on.
But what are your pet peeves? What are some things? What are some things?
How many hours do we have?
Well, maybe 1 minute, because then Yuli's got a question, and Yuli's got family over there, so we do have to try to wrap up. But this is the longest podcast though, so I mean,
yeah, of course. Well, hello to Pat and everybody else that's over at Yuli's place. But honestly, and I know so there's a little bit of serious tone in this when I do say these on the air. My pet peeve is people exceeding 30 seconds religiously and frequently. I understand there's going to be occasionally a bad lie. There's going to be an awkward stance once in a blue moon, and really, quite honestly, no one's going to complain at you if you were to exceed 30 seconds once. But and let me clarify, if you take 29.999999 seconds on every single one of your 72 throws during a round, I also won't say a word. It's when you habitually exceed 30 seconds is when I lose my shit. Just throw within the allotted time frame. I don't want to hear about the rules that you think should be changed. I just want you to throw within the rules that are currently in place. And so that I'm not picking on just Gannon or just Nico or just any of the other slower players and there's a lot of them now.
There's a lot
of them. Those are your two kind of poster children right now, but there's a lot of them. And I filmed one of them this weekend, and he knows it. Jacob Curtis. We talk about it.
Yeah, Jacob Curtis is really bad too. He knows
exactly,
it too.
And he knows it. And we had a frank conversation. You'll see that later on in the week. But
I had one of my buddies that was out there text me like, "Hey, how the heck do you play with these guys on tour?" And I'm like, "It's awful. And you know what's even worse? Being a fan and trying to watch disc golf with people like this, it makes it even worse for the fans. Like as a product, it's awful. So
that's probably, and this is true because partially because I've always been a fast player, and it's just kind of the way that I've always played. Again, I'm good if you take every ounce of that 30 seconds, as long as you're under it, and when you're habitually over it, that is just a major pet peeve, and that's whether I'm in the booth or I'm playing alongside you, or I'm filming you or editing you. In every one of those situations, that's a major pet peeve of mine. This one is here's a not so hot take kind of. I hate when players go to the front of the tee and they kick up dirt or something that's in the front of the tee, and they're trying to either get a wind read and or kick up the dirt so they can rub their hand in it. Why are you wrecking the spot in the front of the tee where we already have erosion problems? And you think, well, who cares about that? Well, first of all, it's against the rules because it's technically in front of you.
And second of all,
that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think about it.
Because when I go to the next parks department and I say, hey, I'd love to, put a course in, and they're like, oh, yeah, and you want to put in these cement things, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of erosion problems around it. It's like, no, because Brody's sitting out there kicking dirt at the front of the tee, and you think, well, okay, you do it, who cares? The problem is, you're influencing...
I was a grass guy for a while, and then I saw someone do the kick dirt, and I was like, "It's worse. That's nice."
Yeah, it's worse.
But it looks cool. It looks cool. It looks cool.
Yeah, and then when you do that, and then you influence a few thousand other people to do it, next thing you know, we got all these freaking dirt patches that are.
I definitely kick dirt.
Yeah, quit doing that.
So Terry's an anti-grass guy. Let's kill more grass, folks. Everyone listening, pull the grass out. toss it up in the
okay,
air.
what about the
Again,
poof? What about the poofer? Do you like the poofer?
It's
Do you
clever.
Do you like the poofer? Do you like it?
It's clever if you're talking about what Gannon's doing. It's clever.
The poof.
right?
Now I'm watching all these kids poof around with their poof.
Gavin does it too. He's a poofer.
Yeah, so I'm okay. And again, I have that different perspective because I've helped install somewhere between 30 and 40 courses. So I'm talking to parks departments, and erosion control is a conversation. Yeah. And now you got people out here kicking up, so it sounds dumb when you just say it, but then when you think about it like a little bit, it's like,
still
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. And it's against the rules. If you think,
I'll think about that. I'll think about that. Next time I kick, I'm going to be like, no, dang it. Why am I kicking this? And then it's going to be in my head and I'm going to shank it. This is terrible.
Yeah. So you're welcome.
All right, Yuli, hit him with the last question.
This is going to be good because 1995 was your highest rating?
No, 2007.
2007.
I was rated
we're gonna take a
995.
trip down memory lane. 2007. Of the players that you were playing with and battling with, could be in Wisconsin, could be anywhere. Who did you look at their game and you were like, man, that's nice. I wish I could do that.
Well, I mean, I played like my 4th round of Worlds that year with like Climo and Christian Sandstrom. I mean, if that means anything, two of the
mean, like it could be a putting stroke, or it could be like the way they threw rocks back in the day, or crazy distance. Like,
sure.
Was there somebody in particular that you were like a little jealous of?
I mean, plenty of players, especially because I didn't throw far myself. Philo was just coming into the scene. Funny enough, I'm thinking about World specifically, but like Anthon was just an insane putter at the time. He still is, as we talked about. Doss went on to win that Worlds and clearly had that crazy kind of Anheuser putt, like an Anthon, like a Rico, right? So those are a couple of the guys. Kenny had already secured his 12th world title by then, and then Barry Schultz in Wisconsin, who I grew up with, is just the smoothest. He's arguably the smoothest thrower that you've seen, in a generation.
Ever. Yeah, he's the smoothest player, I think, ever.
Just smooth, right? Kale had started coming over to Wisconsin and was playing once in a while, I think, with us by that time. Felberg was kind of on top of the world as well. He was one of the contenders. Avery Jenkins, who didn't love Avery's power, at that time. That was 2 years short of him going toe-to-toe with Anthon in the Worlds. And Anthon's putting, like I said, was insane.
And Matty O too that year.
Matty O was always in the top 5 or 10 at almost every Worlds. And then look at Marcus Sahlstrom, who finished second or third at that Worlds.
Second, yeah.
I haven't heard of that name.
And he was throwing piranhas. And he was throwing, birdies or piranhas or whatever, throwing lasers 400 feet with those things, or 450 feet. And you're like, dude, I can't get that thing to go 200 feet on on a beach.
A piranha.
Or whatever.
That's a sick name.
It was a piranha, yeah.
Was it a piranha?
Yeah.
Who made that?
Innova.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then look at Dr. Rick was still like relevant and couldn't throw 350 feet or maxed out at 350, but made every putt inside 50 feet.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I don't know. There was just
a doctor,
all the greats.
Or is that his nickname?
No, Dr. Rick. Yeah, he's a doctor, a pediatrician, Hall of Famer. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know it was like a Dr. J situation. I don't think Dr. J was a doctor.
No, Dr. Rick is very much a doctor of 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, I take my kid to him.
there were just so many, and McCabe hadn't quite won yet his Worlds because that was 2007, but certainly McCabe was someone to look after. Macbeth was still not really anyone yet. He lost AM Worlds a few days earlier in a playoff at a hole that's just a few miles from my house, but he lost in a 3-way playoff at AM Worlds to a local, Greg Schwartz, to a local. And Greg kind of has not gone on to have quite the career.
I was going to say, is Greg making $1 million now or what?
No. Unless he bought out the architecture firm he works for. I don't think he's making $1 million. Super good guy, but that was definitely
what could have been,
the
man.
peak.
What could have been.
So, and there's still jokes to this day, I think, occasionally between the two of them. But yeah, Macbeth lost in a playoff, in a 3-way playoff, him and Brian Miller and Greg Schwartz at the Am Worlds I was TDing. And that's when I met Paige Pierce. And yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But that was just another hat that I wore, was tournament director.
That's crazy. Awesome.
So there's incredible players, all of which I just mentioned. Those are the who's who of like that era when you look at obviously a world championships, and Nico was very much in the scene or coming onto the scene. And I'm trying to think who I played against at that Worlds. But that was one of the best weeks of my life, coming off the week of running Am Worlds, then going right into Pro
Big
World.
Glow win.
The next year, take that down. I tell you.
I've never played Glow disc golf.
My God. And they give you a podcast. They give you, have a disc golf podcast.
No one gave me a
podcast.
First off, no one gave it to me. I started it, and yes, we're award winning in the first year.
Oh my God.
We're not even 50 episodes in, and we've already won an award. Heck yeah.
The highest of all honors you called them the tough. Grippies. Is that what they're called?
That's what they're called. Yeah,
that is adorable. Okay,
that is it. So something to strive for next year.
Yes.
Maybe coming on Tour Life, you can learn a thing or two. Take it back to Smashbox and see if you can pull one off next year.
The only thing my resume is missing is a grippy, or whatever those are called. Yeah, it's a grippy.
Yeah.
It sounds like that could be like somehow associated with some other illegal activity. Like, oh yeah, I got a grippy last night. Like, I don't.
Definitely never crossed my mind.
Sounds really
I think
cool.
it's sick. We get a trophy. I can't wait to rate the trophy.
I'm gonna put it right here.
Yeah, it's gonna be sick.
Somewhere right here. I'm gonna put a new shelf, I think. Pop it up.
I'm gonna take down my 1 million subscriber YouTube plaque and put my
now we're just flexing.
Put my grippy up there next to my 7 world records. All right. Well, Terry, we appreciate you taking the time. If you didn't know and you wanted to catch more of Terry, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Central.
9 p.m. Central.
Smashbox TV. Check them out. If you want to see what the rival to the longest podcast is for disc golf, and then obviously you'll catch Terry all next year on the Disc Golf Network as well. You got something? Go for it. Yeah.
And I'm just going to get a couple more quick plugs in there.
Go. Plug away.
Those are right. You'll see me there, hopefully. I mean, I guess my contract's up, so we'll see if the network brings me back next year.
Breaking news.
Hopefully tonight didn't influence that in any negative capacity. Just a couple other quick things. Yes, of course, this is kind of my quote-unquote slower season, so you're going to see my channel pick back up with trying to do more post-production. I did film Las Vegas this last weekend. I'm going to Arizona a couple times. I'm going to be in Thailand and Malaysia. So, I'll be in Florida. So all that coverage is going to be unfolding in the next few months. So a lot of people have kind of hopefully expected that you see some of the off-season content. I go and do those things for.
And what YouTube channel is that?
That's on the Disc Golf Guy. That's my personal channel, so to speak, the Disc Golf Guy. And then on top of that, the Disc Golf Guy is committed to doing more of my own podcast next year, in addition to Smashbox. So we're going to continue to have the kind of crazy fun 3 and 4 hour ones. I'm going to scale it back and do just exclusively interviews. So that we keep them in a much tighter time frame, not trying to get any one of those grippy awards in that capacity. I want to come out with more podcasts that are just straight up interviews, me and one other person. So look for that. And then last but not least, big news announcing next Tuesday. That's about all I can say on it. It's definitely more on a personal level, but relates to disc golf. I'm going to have a big thing drop next Tuesday.
Can we get a hint? Channel. Can we get one hint? Like a little hint. Come on. For the people.
I mean, I told Yuli yesterday that it's more exciting for me than for the rest of the world, but it will still benefit the entire disc golf community.
You won the lottery?
No.
Oh, okay.
It has something to do with international disc golf. I'll say that. That's what I'll say. And our overall international disc golf scene has something to do with that. So. That will be next week Tuesday. So that'll be Tuesday, and then Tuesday night will be Smashbox. We can talk about it more, and then you guys can talk about it or not come Wednesday. So I appreciate you guys for having me. Seriously, I know a lot of people think we have like this animosity among all of us like media folk, and it's just not there.
No, there's certain people I don't like. There's definitely certain people I don't like.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of there's people that don't like you. So okay, no, I guess that checks out. But I don't have any animosity. I may throw out like jokes and jabs and such, but I'm personally I'm pretty good with most people. So I appreciate it, and I want to see a lot of our media grow and thrive and succeed, and that's the shows, that's the channels, that's the networks, that's the independent pieces. Like we can consume it all, and like you said earlier, Brody, people can pick and choose what they like, and if you don't like it, you can either shut the F up or provide some constructive criticism, and that's how we'll all get better. Those would be the way I look at it. So,
well, I know myself and Yuli, including with everyone listening as well, we do really appreciate all the work you have done from years and years ago to what you do day to day now to continue to help disc golf be where it is and continue to grow. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate your time tonight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much again. Thanks for having me. And if you guys ever need like the right take on anything else, just call me up. I'll be happy to jump on with you.
Perfect.
Have a good night, guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
thank
you
as
as well.
See ya.
All right, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy. There he is. We finally got him on the show. It was only a matter of time. That was fun, man. That was some good times. Some good stories there.